It was supposed to be a simple night out. But when my wife, Amanda, chose the chaos of bars and flirtations over the quiet of our home, I knew I couldn't stand by any longer. What followed was a decision that shattered everything: her career, her reputation, and the marriage we once had. I let her choices unfold, knowing that sometimes the only way to teach someone the weight of their actions is to let them experience the full cost of it. But before we dive into this roller coaster of betrayal, heartbreak, and redemption, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. And if you enjoy the story, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell to stay updated with our latest posts. Amanda was 33 years old, living in the heart of San Francisco, where the city's skyline reflected the hustle and grind of her own life. She had everything on the surface: a successful career as a senior marketing executive at one of the city's top firms, a sleek apartment in a high-rise building with a breathtaking view of the bay, and a circle of friends who envied her seemingly perfect life. Yet, despite all her achievements, Amanda felt an undeniable emptiness gnawing at her from within. Her professional triumphs did little to fill the void that had slowly crept into her personal life, especially her marriage to Alex. Alex, her husband of 8 years, was a thoughtful, dependable man who had once been her rock. But as the years passed, Amanda found herself drifting further from him. The late nights at the office, the business trips, the constant parties and social events. These were her escapes. She had stopped noticing the little things: the way Alex would look at her with that hopeful expression, the quiet dinners they used to share, the laughter that used to fill their home. Now their marriage had become a hollow routine, and Amanda found herself caught in an endless cycle of neglecting the person who still cared for her the most. One particularly busy Thursday afternoon, Amanda found herself in the office kitchen, stirring her third cup of coffee for the day. The bright fluorescent lights overhead buzzed faintly, adding to the sterile atmosphere of the office. Her colleague, Nicole, stood beside her, leaning against the counter with a mischievous grin. "Come on, Amanda, just one drink. It's Thursday, it's practically the weekend already," Nicole said, her voice laced with excitement. Amanda paused, her fingers lightly tapping the edge of her coffee mug. The thought of going out was tempting. It had been ages since she'd let herself enjoy a night out without worrying about work or her marriage. She glanced at her phone, noting the time. Alex would be waiting for her at home, expecting her to keep the promises she had made to him. Her stomach twisted at the thought. "I don't know, Nicole. Alex won't be happy if I go out tonight," Amanda muttered, her voice betraying a hint of guilt. Nicole rolled her eyes, clearly unimpressed. "Oh, come on. He'll be fine. It's just one drink. You deserve it. Besides, you've been working non-stop. You need to unwind." Amanda hesitated, looking out the window at the bustling city below. The bright lights, the energy, the feeling of freedom. It called to her. She could feel her responsibilities tugging at her, but the weight of her personal life had started to feel heavier than ever. With a sigh, Amanda set her coffee cup down and made a decision. "All right, just one drink, but that's it." She forced a smile, trying to push away the sense of guilt that started to creep up again. As she followed Nicole out the door, her mind was already racing with the possibilities of a carefree night. Little did she know, it would be a night that would change everything. Amanda walked briskly behind Nicole as they left the office, her mind swirling with conflicting thoughts. She had promised Alex she would make more time for him, that she would come home earlier, be more present. But tonight, for once, she felt the weight of her own desires pushing her in the opposite direction. She was tired. Tired of being the responsible wife, the dutiful employee, the woman who had it all but still felt so empty. As they stepped into the cool evening air, the neon lights of the city twinkling ahead, Amanda couldn't help but feel the pull of freedom. The city offered an escape from the constraints of her marriage, from the suffocating pressure of expectations. She thought of the crowded streets, the laughter spilling from every bar, the sense of belonging she often missed in her own life. It had been so long since she'd let herself experience that rush, the thrill of being alone, untethered, in control. "Just one drink," she whispered to herself, as if saying it out loud would make it easier to accept. She couldn't help it. She was drawn to the excitement, the allure of living in the moment. Besides, it was only one night, right? A small rebellion against the growing monotony of her life. Nicole led the way into the Golden Vine, the noise and energy immediately enveloping Amanda. She took a deep breath, letting go of the tight knot in her chest. Tonight, she was going to enjoy herself. Just tonight. As Amanda and Nicole entered the Golden Vine, the transformation was immediate. The sharp contrast between the outside world and the bar's electric atmosphere hit her instantly. The dim lighting, the buzz of conversation, and the pulsing rhythm of the music wrapped around her like a warm embrace. It felt like stepping into another world, a world where she wasn't weighed down by responsibilities or her crumbling marriage. Here, she could be whoever she wanted to be. The noise of the crowd was a welcome distraction, and for a moment, Amanda could forget the tension that had been simmering at home. The bar was alive with energy, and it felt as though the night was waiting for her to embrace it fully. Nicole led the way to a high-top table near the bar, her eyes scanning the room. "You still got it, Amanda," Nicole said with a grin, leaning in. "Half the guys in here can't take their eyes off you." Amanda's lips curled into a sly smile as she glanced around the room, noticing the admiring glances. She hadn't felt this confident in a long time. "What can I say? Some of us are just born with it," she replied, her tone playful and light. As the conversation flowed and the drinks started to settle in, Amanda felt the weight of her day slip away. She was no longer the woman tied to a disappointing home life. Here, she was free. The music thumped in her chest, and for the first time in weeks, she felt alive again. The night at the Golden Vine continued to unfold in a blur of laughter and music. But then something shifted. Amanda's attention was drawn to a tall, confident man standing at the bar. He had an easy smile, his eyes scanning the room with a mixture of curiosity and confidence. When their gazes met, Amanda couldn't help but notice how his expression softened into something more inviting. There was an undeniable spark, and for a moment she couldn't ignore the pull. Nicole, always the observant one, nudged Amanda with an impish grin. "Looks like someone's interested," she teased, nodding in Chris's direction. Amanda, her heart racing a little, shrugged nonchalantly. "It's all innocent fun," she replied, her voice light, though a part of her couldn't deny the thrill of being noticed. The chase, the attention. It was a welcome distraction from everything she was leaving behind. Without missing a beat, Chris made his way over to their table, his confident stride cutting through the crowd. "Hey," he said, his voice warm and casual. "I'm Chris. What brings you here tonight?" Amanda grinned, leaning back in her seat with a playful glint in her eyes. "Just looking for some fun, like everyone else," she replied, the words coming out more easily than she expected. Nicole, ever the mischievous friend, raised an eyebrow and winked at Amanda. "Still got it, huh?" Amanda laughed, her shoulders relaxing. "Guess so," she said with a shrug, her tone teasing. The conversation flowed effortlessly from there, with Chris and Amanda trading playful banter, both enjoying the attention the other was offering. Despite herself, Amanda found it refreshing to be in the company of someone who was interested in her, not the responsibilities that waited at home. They spoke about everything and nothing. Travel, music, their favorite spots in the city, nothing too serious. Just light-hearted fun. As the night wore on and the music shifted to something slower, more intimate, Amanda found herself drawn into a deeper conversation with Chris. The distance between them seemed to shrink as their laughter faded into more meaningful exchanges. For a brief moment, Amanda felt a spark she hadn't felt in a long time. A connection that was easy, uncomplicated. Finally, after what seemed like hours, Chris smiled and leaned in slightly, his voice lower. "I'd love to take you out sometime. Can I get your number?" Amanda hesitated for a brief second, a flicker of guilt sparking in the back of her mind, but the pull of the night and the excitement of the moment won out. With a sly smile, she reached for her phone. "Sure, but it doesn't mean anything," she said, her words carrying a lightness that belied the small, uncertain pang in her chest. Chris chuckled, his smile widening. "I'll give you a call," he promised. Amanda nodded, feeling a rush of adrenaline as she tucked her phone back into her purse. The night wasn't over yet, and there was still plenty of fun to be had. But deep down, she couldn't shake the nagging feeling that things were beginning to slip from her control. As the night wore on, Amanda found herself caught up in the energy of the bar, enjoying the attention and the freedom that seemed to flow effortlessly. The laughter, the music, the carefree vibe. It was a welcome distraction from everything at home. But as the evening began to wind down, she pulled her phone out of her purse, the screen lighting up as she checked the time. It was already late, and the thought of Alex waiting for her at home gnawed at the back of her mind. Her thumb hovered over the screen, scrolling through messages. There were no texts from Alex, no calls. It was the silence that made her feel the weight of her absence. She could almost hear the unspoken disappointment in the quiet spaces between them at home. A quick pang of guilt swept over her, but she quickly brushed it away. "It's just one night," Amanda thought to herself, "nothing to feel guilty about. Alex will be fine." Her sister leaned against the counter and waited. She told herself the same thing over and over, as if repeating it could somehow make the guilt go away. It wasn't like she was doing anything wrong, just enjoying a night out. She deserved it. After all, wasn't this how it had always been? A little time apart, a little fun, and then everything would go back to normal. With a dismissive shake of her head, Amanda slipped the phone back into her bag. The music pulsed around her, the conversations continued, and for the moment, she let herself sink back into the night's excitement. There was no turning back now. When Amanda finally arrived home, a strange feeling settled over her. The familiar warmth of the porch light wasn't there. Alex always left it on for her, a small gesture of welcome after her long nights out. Tonight, however, the light was off, and as she stood there for a moment, her heart began to race. Something was wrong. The house, once a place of comfort, now felt eerily silent, like a shadow of its former self. She pushed open the door, expecting the usual soft murmur of the TV or the quiet hum of the refrigerator, but there was nothing. The stillness in the house was suffocating. Amanda called out for Alex, but her voice seemed to vanish into the empty air. No answer. The silence deepened, her mind already racing with questions. She walked through the hallway, her footsteps muffled against the hardwood floor, until she reached the kitchen. That's when she saw it. A stack of papers, neatly arranged on the counter, their presence impossible to ignore. Next to them was a velvet box, and Amanda's breath caught in her throat as she recognized it immediately. It was the box that once held her engagement ring, the symbol of a promise she had broken time and time again. Her hand trembled as she reached for the letter that lay beside the box. With each passing second, a sense of dread grew inside her. She unfolded the letter slowly, the words sinking in like cold, sharp blades. "Amanda, I can't keep living like this. For years I've waited, hoped for you to choose me over the bars, the strangers, and the chaos. Every time you promised to change, I believed you. But love isn't enough without trust, respect, and commitment. You've given me none of those. I know about the flirting, the late nights, the numbers exchanged. I've been patient, but I'm done waiting. If you want to save this, meet me at the Pinewood Suites, room 304, by 5 p.m. this Friday. If you don't show up, I'll know you've made your choice. The divorce papers are ready. I hope you read them carefully. Alex." The words seemed to blur as Amanda's vision became clouded with shock. Her breath caught in her throat as she reread the letter, the weight of Alex's words sinking deeper with each line. She had pushed him too far, taken him for granted. The promises she had made, the lies she told herself, they all led to this moment. Her eyes drifted to the divorce papers, now painfully real in front of her. She reached for them but stopped short, her hand hovering above the stack, as if afraid to touch them. The finality of Alex's decision hung in the air, suffocating her with the consequences of everything she had done. The quiet in the house seemed deafening now, her thoughts racing with no clear path forward. She knew, deep down, that Alex was done waiting, and no matter how much she tried to deny it, the truth was unmistakable. She had made her choice, and now it was time to face the fallout. The next morning, Amanda could hardly believe what she had read the night before. The letter still weighed heavily on her mind, but deep down she refused to accept its reality. She crumpled the paper into a tight ball, her fingers pressing it into a shape that mirrored the chaos inside her. The letter didn't feel like a final goodbye. It felt like an empty threat. Alex couldn't be serious, could he? She tried to push the thought away, telling herself it was just a scare tactic. He'll come back. He always does, she repeated in her mind, clinging to the hope that the man she had taken for granted would forgive her, as he had done countless times before. There was no way he would let go this easily. It wasn't in his nature. Determined to avoid facing the truth, Amanda decided to push the situation out of her mind, at least for a little while. The day passed in a blur of distractions, and by evening she found herself heading back to the Golden Vine with Nicole and a few others. It was easy to slip back into the rhythm of the bar, where she could pretend that everything was still fine, that nothing had changed. The familiar music and the crowd's energy helped drown out the gnawing voice in her head, telling her she had crossed a line from which there was no return. As Amanda took a sip of her drink, she muttered to herself, her eyes scanning the bar. "Really, Alex? This is how you fix things?" she grumbled, the words bitter in her mouth. She could almost hear the hurt in his voice from the letter, but she refused to let it sink in. Instead, she leaned back in her chair, forcing herself to relax. The familiar thrill of attention from others soothed her nerves. He'll come back. He always does. The thought repeated itself, louder than any other voice in her head. As the night wore on, Amanda tried to ignore the weight of the truth. But deep down, she knew that ignoring it wouldn't make it go away. Amanda's defiance began to fade as the days passed, but she still refused to confront the reality of Alex's decision. She convinced herself that it was just a bluff. Alex was angry, but he couldn't truly walk away from their life together. She kept avoiding the truth, distracting herself with work, friends, and nights out. The Golden Vine became her safe haven, a place where she could numb the growing anxiety that crept in at night. But deep down, a quiet fear gnawed at her. That evening, after another late night out, Amanda walked back into her apartment with the same sense of reluctance. The door creaked open, and as she stepped inside, a sharp chill ran through her. Something felt different. The apartment seemed emptier than before, quiet, almost too quiet. Her eyes scanned the familiar space, and that's when she saw it, another letter on the kitchen counter. With a sinking feeling, Amanda dropped her purse on the table and walked toward the letter, her hands trembling. She knew exactly what it was before she even picked it up. Alex's handwriting, familiar, but now painfully distant, stared back at her. She tore it open quickly, not wanting to read the words but knowing she had no choice. As her eyes moved across the paper, the finality of Alex's decision hit her like a punch to the gut. His words were cold, precise, and unforgiving. "Amanda, you didn't show. I waited until 5:30. I hope this makes it clear. I'm not coming back. The account is closed, the papers are filed, and I've left the house key under the mat for the realtor. The house will be listed next week. This is goodbye. Alex." Amanda's breath caught in her throat, her chest tightening as the weight of the words sank in. She had missed her chance, and now it was too late. The reality of Alex's absence settled heavily in the pit of her stomach. She was truly alone. The next morning, Amanda's phone rang, breaking the uneasy silence that hung in the air. She glanced at the screen, an unfamiliar number. With a deep breath, she answered, hoping it was a distraction from the storm brewing in her mind. Even the sound of her voice had her spinning at her current pace. "Mrs. Tower?" the voice on the other end said, formal and distant. "This is Sarah Parker from Reynolds Law Firm. I'm calling to confirm that your husband, Mr. Alex Tower, has filed for divorce. We will be proceeding with the necessary steps shortly." Amanda's heart skipped a beat. Divorce? The word felt alien, foreign, and for a moment she couldn't process what she had just heard. Her mind raced as she stammered out a few responses before the call ended. The finality of it all hit her like a tidal wave. It wasn't just an argument, an angry letter, or a temporary separation. Alex was gone. He had made his choice. She hung up the phone, her hands suddenly shaky, and headed for the computer to check their finances, hoping to find some trace of security. But when she logged into their joint account, her stomach lurched. The screen showed a message: "Account frozen." Her fingers hovered over the keyboard as panic set in. She tried to access her personal account, only to find it almost empty, the balance lower than she expected. Amanda sat there, stunned. She had always assumed Alex would never act this decisively. The realization of how much he had prepared, how much he had been hurt, overwhelmed her. She had pushed him too far, and now she was facing the consequences of taking him for granted. The weight of her choices was crushing. As the divorce proceedings began, Amanda's world seemed to unravel before her. In the courtroom, Alex's lawyer, Matthew Reynolds, presented a well-organized case against her, leaving no room for doubt. He outlined in precise detail the years of her disregard for the marriage, the betrayals, and the painful choices that had led to this moment. Amanda sat there, stunned, as Matthew's voice filled the room, each word like a blow to her already fragile self-esteem. "Your Honor," Matthew began, his tone cold and deliberate. "Mr. Tower has taken necessary steps to secure his financial stability after enduring years of repeated disregard for his marital vows. These include the lawful reallocation of joint assets, a ledger tracking Ms. Tower's spending, and screenshots of texts, emails, and photos confirming her extramarital affair." Amanda's breath caught in her throat as the evidence was presented. Each piece a stark reminder of her mistakes. She had never imagined Alex would go this far, documenting everything, taking control of his own future while she had spiraled out of control. The affair with Anthony Burke, which she had convinced herself was just a fleeting mistake, now stood as undeniable proof of her betrayal. As the days passed, Amanda's career began to deteriorate as well. Her personal life, once a closely guarded secret, became the subject of office gossip. Whispers followed her through the hallways, her once confident presence at work now replaced with humiliation. The rumors had spread quickly, her mistakes laid bare for everyone to see. One afternoon, her boss called her into the office. She walked in with a tight, forced smile, already dreading what was coming. "Amanda?" her boss began, his voice measured but firm. "You've been a valued part of the team for years, but it's clear your personal life is affecting your work. I think it might be best for everyone if you take a step back and focus on getting things in order." Amanda's heart sank. The weight of her choices crushed her as she nodded silently, the resignation settling in her chest. She couldn't fight it anymore. Her reputation, once carefully cultivated, was now in tatters. There was no running from the truth, and as she walked out of the office for what felt like the last time, Amanda realized just how far she had fallen. Her life, once filled with promises of success and stability, had become a hollow shell. The consequences of her actions were far-reaching, and as each day passed, she felt the full scope of what she had lost. The woman who had it all was now left to pick up the pieces of a shattered future. Amanda's new life in the small one-bedroom apartment felt like a constant reminder of her failures. The space was bare and unfamiliar, a stark contrast to the home she had once shared with Alex. The walls were quiet, with no laughter, no shared meals, just the emptiness of a life she no longer recognized. The freedom she had once sought felt more like a prison now, and every night as she lay in bed, the weight of her choices pressed heavily on her chest. Desperate to fill the void, Amanda tried dating again. She went on a few dates with men who seemed promising at first, charming, attentive, eager to get to know her. But each relationship fell short. The spark she was hoping to reignite never appeared. The connections felt shallow, and nothing compared to the deep bond she had once shared with Alex. She realized too late that the love she had taken for granted was something irreplaceable, and no one else could fill the space it had left behind. When the golden vine, which had once been her escape, no longer held the same allure. The nights out felt more like a distraction than a release, and the lively atmosphere that had once energized her now felt hollow and empty. She would sit at the bar, drink in hand, watching the world go by, but even the noise couldn't drown out the silence inside her. Amanda slowly came to terms with the harsh reality of her situation. She had lost the man who truly loved her. The vibrant life she had once built for herself had crumbled, and she was left to face the wreckage of her own making. No amount of fleeting fun or temporary distractions could undo the damage she had caused. She was alone, and the weight of that truth was something she could no longer ignore. Months passed, and slowly, Amanda began to rebuild the pieces of her shattered life. The road to recovery was not easy, and the weight of her past still lingered, but she knew she had to start somewhere. She found a job at a small boutique, working long hours to occupy her mind and distance herself from the heartache that had defined her recent past. The quiet routine of folding clothes, helping customers, and managing the small tasks of the shop became her anchor. It wasn't glamorous, but it gave her a sense of stability she desperately needed. She also started seeing a therapist. At first, the sessions felt awkward, like peeling back layers of a wound that had never fully healed. But over time, she began to understand herself better, uncovering the reasons behind her actions and learning how to forgive herself. It was a painful but necessary journey, and little by little, she started to gain a sense of clarity. In addition to therapy, Amanda rediscovered old hobbies she had abandoned years ago. She picked up her paintbrush again, letting the colors flow onto the canvas as a way of expressing the emotions she had kept bottled up for so long. The hiking trails she once loved became her sanctuary. Time alone in nature, away from the noise of the world, gave her a chance to reconnect with the person she had once been. It was as if these activities reminded her of a time before the chaos, a time when she had a sense of peace and purpose. One afternoon, as Amanda walked through a park near her apartment, the crisp air filling her lungs, she felt a rare sense of calm wash over her. The sun was setting, casting a golden glow over the path ahead. For the first time in months, she felt a quiet acceptance of where she was. Her life hadn't turned out the way she had imagined, but she had begun to accept the past and the mistakes she had made. It wasn't perfect, but it was hers. As she walked, her mind wandered to the future, no longer clouded by regret or bitterness. Amanda stopped for a moment and smiled to herself. It's not the end of my story. It's the beginning of a new chapter. The road ahead wouldn't be easy, but for the first time in a long time, she was ready to face it, knowing that whatever came next, she would walk through it with purpose. One who'd written a memoir asked, Amanda's journey of healing was not a swift one, but it was a necessary one. Each step she took, no matter how small, led her toward a new version of herself, one that was both stronger and more introspective than the woman she had been before. The confidence she had once radiated was still there, but now it was tempered by wisdom born from the painful lessons of her past. She no longer sought external validation or fleeting moments of excitement. Instead, Amanda had learned to value herself for who she truly was, flaws and all. In the months since the divorce, Amanda had come to understand the deeper meaning of love and stability. She realized that true love wasn't about momentary passion or temporary escapes, but about commitment, respect, and, above all, trust. She had broken those bonds with Alex, but in doing so, she had gained the clarity she needed to recognize what really mattered. And as much as she missed the life they had shared, Amanda knew that in order to heal, she had to let go of the past. While she was still working through the remnants of her mistakes, she no longer viewed them as burdens to carry. Instead, they had become the foundation for her personal growth. She had learned to forgive herself, to embrace the pain as part of her story, not as a reason to stay stuck. As Amanda stood on the threshold of a new chapter in her life, she knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy. There would be setbacks, moments of doubt, and times when the past would try to creep back in. But this time, she was ready. She would face whatever came next with purpose, knowing that each day was another opportunity to rebuild her life on her own terms. The woman who had once been lost was now finding her way, step by step, toward a future filled with possibility